And if you have ever consumed any sci-fi media from the early 2000s, the setup for Prototype is gonna sound familiar. So you play as Alex Mercer, a dude who wakes up in a morgue of this super shady corporation called Gentek in Manhattan. And Alex is suffering from this unsurprising case of video game amnesia. He remembers nothing about who he is, why he has a hole in his chest, or why two scientists are standing over him with a bone saw. Anyways, some military guys known as Blackwatch burst into the room and start gunning down the scientists to cover their tracks. Alex makes a break for it, jumps over a wall, and quickly realizes he isn't exactly human anymore. He has superhuman strength, speed, and the ability to shapeshift into deadly weapons. More importantly, he has the power to consume other humans, absorbing their biomass to heal himself and taking on their physical appearance and even memories. And from here, the plot is basically a bloody revenge tour. Alex wants to find out who turned him into a monster, and he's willing to murder his way through the entire military and infected mutants to get his answers. Now on paper, this sounds like your standard B-movie stuff, and honestly, the cutscenes do it absolutely no favors. Like, the voice acting is really edgy with Alex constantly whispering about making people pay, but it's the actual delivery of the narrative that makes Prototype pretty damn interesting. And the game has this thing called the web of intrigue. So instead of forcing you to sit through 40 minutes of boring narrative dumps, the game hides the story inside specific NPCs scattered around the world. So as you're exploring the city, you will see certain targets highlighted like Blackwatch commanders, Gentek scientists, or military grunts. And when you track these poor bastards down and consume them, you get this quick, incredibly stylish sequence of their memories. I think there are over 100 of these in the game, so you gotta literally eat people to piece the conspiracy together.
Just after they enter the holding cell area.
That's it, close it off. No one goes in or comes out of the Gentek building. I want it sealed with level 4 protocols.
And also through this web of intrigue, you uncover a deeply f***ed-up backstory. You learn that in 1969, the government actually tested a predecessor to this virus in a small town in Idaho, aiming to create a bioweapon that targeted specific demographics. Shockingly, the evil government experiment went wrong, mutating the entire population. Blackwatch, the special forces unit dedicated to biological warfare, rolled in and wiped the town off the map. The only survivor was a woman named Elizabeth Green, whose body accepted the virus and rewrote her genetic code. So Blackwatch kept her and her son locked up in captivity for decades to study them. Green eventually escapes during the events of the game and becomes the terrifying mother of the infected, turning New York into a literal meat grinder. But the best part of the story, the twist that actually made my jaw drop back in the day, happens near the end. You find out that you aren't Alex Mercer. The real Dr. Alex Mercer was a paranoid Gentek scientist who realized Blackwatch was gonna kill him to tie up loose ends. So he stole a vial of the virus as insurance. And when Blackwatch cornered him, Mercer basically said "F it" and smashed the vial on the ground, unleashing the infection onto the city before getting gunned down. The virus then seeped into his dead body, consumed him down to the cellular level, copied his appearance, and gained sentience. Yep, that's right. The guy you've been playing as the entire time is just the virus itself believing it is Alex Mercer, because that was the very first brain it ever ate. It's an incredibly dark and a brilliant twist that perfectly justifies why your character has the moral compass of a serial killer. You aren't a guy struggling with his humanity, you're a literal disease masquerading as a human.
What he did at Penn Station. And whoever he was, that's a part of me. Because when I close my eyes, I see the memories of 1,000 dead men screaming as I take their lives. Moments I'll relive forever.
Okay, moving on to the visuals and the art style. It was actually built on an engine that Radical Entertainment repurposed from their previous game, The Incredible Hulk, and honestly, it kinda shows. Okay, look, Prototype is the poster child for the 360 era. Everything is in this muddy color palette of grays and sickly browns and maybe muted greens. It's funny because when I first played it in 2010 on my crappy laptop, I thought the graphics looked amazing. But you know what? We aren't gonna look at graphics today because it came out 17 years ago, so of course the graphics are gonna look pretty dated. But here's where I have to give the game some credit. What it lacks in graphical fidelity, it makes up for in sheer quality of animation and its dynamic world design. So let's start with the world. So Manhattan isn't some static playground, it's actually a living, breathing war zone that visually degrades as the story progresses. The map is divided into 3 distinct zones based on the infection levels. You have the blue zones, which are controlled by the military. Then you have the red zones, which is pure nightmare. These areas are completely overrun by the virus. The sky turns an apocalyptic red and the streets are choked with thousands of infected zombies. And finally, you have the purple zones, which are where the military and the infected are just violently clashing in the streets. and still this all looks really impressive. And then there's Mercer himself. The character design is pretty iconic now, like with the leather jacket and the hood. But for me, the real highlight is the quality of all the animations. So like when Alex shifts his arms into massive blades or giant fists, the transformation isn't just a quick effect. You actually see the biomatter rippling in this sickening and organic way. The combat animations are also pretty smooth. Like when you leap into the air, charge up a blade attack and come crashing down to literally slice a tank in half, the visual feedback is just incredible. Also, the game earns its M rating in its first 5 minutes. You can slice people into chunks, rip the turrets off armored vehicles, and pull pilots out of helicopters before turning them into red mist. It's unapologetically brutal, and that level of ultra-violence gives the game a distinct aesthetic that I honestly really miss in modern games today. Alright, we have arrived at the meat and potatoes of the video, the gameplay. So the gameplay mechanics here are honestly a masterclass in player empowerment. This isn't a game about hiding behind cover or carefully sneaking through bushes. It's essentially an apex predator simulator. It's a game that hands you the keys to a digital city and says, go do whatever the f you want to do. Okay, so let's start with the traversal, because the movement here is arguably its greatest triumph. Cause like here you treat gravity like a mild suggestion. You automatically vault over cars, and when you hit a skyscraper you just run straight up without losing any momentum. And as you progress and earn evolution points or EP, the movement just gets more and more absurd. Like you unlock the ability to charge your jumps or even the ability to glide. The whole movement is so intoxicatingly fast and fluid, and it's something very few games have ever managed to replicate. Only games that come to my mind are the Arkham and Spider-Man games. Anyways, when you do inevitably bump into the military or the infected, the combat system opens up into this playground of violence. So you have these 5 primary offensive powers. Like first you have the claws. These turn your hands into Wolverine-style talons. They're the fastest weapon in the game and perfect for shredding through unarmored infantry. Next are the hammer fists, and these turn your hands into giant clubs. This is like your early game anti-vehicle power, letting you perform these devastating elbow drops that create mini earthquakes. Then there's my personal favorite, the whip fist. This turns your arm into a tentacle that you can swing around like a psychotic Indiana Jones. But its greatest utility is the ability to grapple onto choppers and hijack them in midair. You also have muscle mass, which simply enhances your base physical strength. Like you can pick up a car or any large object and throw it at a helicopter. Finally, the ultimate weapon, the blade. This turns your entire arm into a razor-sharp sword, and I think it's the highest damage output weapon in the game. A fully charged blade attack can literally cut a tank in two. It's absolutely essential for dealing with the game's tougher bosses and heavy armor. Defensively, you aren't lacking either, like you have a shield that absorbs damage and deflects bullets, or you can activate the armor power. This covers you in some sort of biological shell that reduces all incoming damage, though it restricts your parkour abilities as a trade-off. But wait, there's more. When you absorb enough biomass or when near death, you enter a state called critical mass. This allows you to unleash devastators, which are essentially screen-clearing ultimate attacks. Like there's one that makes you explode, shooting like hundreds of massive spikes in every direction, impaling everything. So like the whole combat is incredibly satisfying, swapping powers on the fly, prioritizing threats, and causing as much property damage as humanly possible. However, the most unique aspect of its gameplay isn't the loud explosive combat, it's the stealth system. Now, it's not stealth in the traditional sense. Instead, they built this concept called deceive or destroy. So basically, consuming people also lets you mimic their appearance and voice, and this opens up a surprisingly robust stealth mechanic. So basically, the human enemies operate on an alert meter. Like if you run up a wall or punch a car, they will spot you and light you up. But if you shapeshift into a random civilian or a military grunt, the alert level drops. And in this disguise, you can just stroll right through the front gates of a fortified base without anyone batting an eye. While disguised as a soldier, you can even hop into tanks and helicopters and use them against the infected without breaking your cover. The absolute peak of this system is the patsy mechanic. If you're in a military disguise and another soldier starts getting suspicious, you can literally point at a random innocent grunt and accuse him of being the shapeshifter. The enemy soldiers will immediately turn on the poor bastard and gun him down while you just casually walk away. This is just so much fun to use, and it makes you feel like an absolute evil genius.
But you can't run.
Come on, man. Semper Fi, I'm with you. What the f*** are you doing?
So how long does it take to beat this carnage? If you're just focusing on the story missions and ignoring the side content, you can roll the credits in about 10 hours. However, if you're a completionist who wants to max out every single power and hunt down every single collectible, you're looking at a healthy 30+ hours of gameplay. But I gotta talk about its difficulty because this is where it shows its major flaw, at least for me. For the first few hours, the game is a beautiful power fantasy. But like right around the midpoint, the game executes a difficulty spike so severe it borders on harassment. Like the military stops screwing around and starts deploying elite strike teams with endless waves of attack helicopters that track you relentlessly. Meanwhile, the infected introduce hunters, which are these big gorilla-like monsters that can match your speed and knock you out of the air. And the combat frequently descends into an incredibly frustrating stunlock simulator. Unlike modern action games, Prototype doesn't give you those generous invincibility frames during your attacks or dodges. So, if you commit to a hammer fist slam, you can and will be interrupted by, let's say, a missile, knocking you flat on your ass. And as you try to stand up, a hunter might tackle you, taking away half your health bar. And trying to grab a civilian to consume for health becomes nearly impossible because an enemy will just shoot you out of the grab animation, or worse, blow up the civilian you were holding. And on hard difficulty, the military accuracy is cranked up to 11 and enemies hit like really hard. It requires a large amount of hit and run tactics and sheer luck to survive some of the late game encounters. And this clunkiness is put on full agonizing display during the game's major boss fights, which are universally considered absolute dog shit. Like the fight against Elizabeth Green where she transforms into this tentacle monster. It's a cinematic spectacle, sure, but mechanically it's kind of frustrating. Okay, look, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you guys. This game is a janky, frustrating mess. The graphics look bad, the story is convoluted, edgy nonsense, and the boss fights are a chore. But here's the thing, I still strongly recommend you play this game if you haven't already. Or replay it if it has been a decade. Because for all of its glaring flaws, Prototype completely nails the one thing that matters most in a video game. It's just so much fun. So just buy it on a deep sale, forgive the jank, and just enjoy the carnage. Thank you all so much for watching, make sure to hit that like, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.